Well, good afternoon. It's Friday here from Hingham, Massachusetts. We're in the middle of November and the leaves are off the trees here. We didn't have a great foliage season in New England. Uh, it may have had something to do with the weather that we had this summer. But in any case, we've just come off, I think, a very up week talking about stewardship. And I think that's appropriate given the week that we had before around ethics and ethical issues and ethical dilemmas and hard decisions that we have to make on a week to week basis. Now, stewardship is an interesting term, and several of you asked, well, what is the definition of stewardship? It's interesting that I introduced this for the week, but I did not actually start off by defining what it was because I thought that most of us might know it, but we don't. It's not part of our normal lexicon. It has started to creep in as we've talked about environmental matters and global warming and things of that we need to be stewards, and we generally mean stewards of our environment. Now, if we were in Western Europe or in Asia, and I know, by the way, some of you are in Asia, at least one of you is in Asia right now as we speak, you know that stewardship, however it's translated into the native language, is something that people understand readily, given that their heritage of where they're living goes back, not just 2 centuries, but many, many centuries. And the value of heritage and the value of those and who and what has come before us is part of the way we think. Here in the United States, we are more forward thinking than backward thinking. We think about the future and we think about possibilities, and we actually don't think too much about the past. In fact, if I think about my own relatives, I only had the privilege of knowing two of my grandparents, and interestingly enough, they didn't talk much about the past. They didn't talk much about the old country that they had come from as immigrants. They came to this country seeking a greater opportunity, and they adapted to the forward-thinking aspects of the country. Whether it was because that they were not very fond memories of the old country and there was something they were escaping, I don't know. But I don't know that much about my heritage as much as maybe many that have come from Western Europe. So stewardship is all about preserving and protecting an asset. It could be an asset of a reputation. It could be a name. It could be a mission. It could be a set of values. It could be beliefs. There's a number of things that are associated with that. Leadership is different. Leadership is about mobilizing people to some outcome. Now, a steward can be a leader and a leader can be a steward, but it isn't necessarily given that if one is one, that they are the other. I also introduced the term ambassador. When I travel, I'm an ambassador of our country. I represent our country. When I talk on the telephone to a customer service person, I view them as an emissary or ambassador for for the company they are working for. Now, they may also be stewards. They may be stewards of a reputation, as stewards of something around service that is important, a deep-rooted value. So these things are intertwined, but they're not quite the same. Now, I want to mention that you know that I was a management consultant for over 20 years, and one of the things I did whenever I started working with a new client is I did research into the heritage of that client, of the company that I was working with and for. How old was this company? Who founded the company? Is there a mission for the company? Does the mission mean anything? Are there critical points or milestones in the history of the company? As I worked with the leaders of the current company, I was very cognizant of seeing how I could draw from the heritage of the company, especially when we were talking about changing the company and changing the company that was consistent with the heritage of the company. I had the privilege of working for Hallmark Cards for about 18 months and working for the president of Hallmark, who was not a family member, who reported to the chairman of the board. By the way, Hallmark is a private company in Kansas City, as you know. And the chairman was the son of the founder. And the grandson of the founder was being groomed to eventually take over the company. But the company was led by people who were not in the family. If you did your homework and you read the Hallmark values statement, you saw that this is a values-driven company. And for it to be authentic in what it does, if you think about the sentiments that they convey in their cards, you would expect them to be a values-driven company. For those of you that watch occasionally the Hallmark Hall of Fame, you know it is very high-quality television, at least 3 or 4 times a year. Now, I bring up Hallmark because in the first week that my team was working with Hallmark, we spent a day at our client's insistence being educated about Hallmark and its values. A full day, not a presentation, not an hour, a full day. We took a tour of the visitors center. We learned about who the founder was. We learned about the beliefs of the company and how they kept those beliefs alive. So this is a company where I felt that I shared part of the stewardship with the leadership team. Now, as we talked about in our discussions about stewardship, you saw those members of the class that had the privilege of attending the service academies, and we have at least 3 in the class, 2 West Point alums and 1 Air Force alum, how they viewed their time at the service academy and the stewardship that they felt for the academy and for our nation. Just jumping forward, if I were to try to think of other public entities that we may know of that have that sort of pride, I gave the example of Notre Dame football. By the way, they haven't been doing very well recently, but you know, they have that sign, "Play like a champion," that everybody touches when they enter that field. You know, I'm from Boston, and you know, our arch rivals are the Yankees. But boy, do I respect the Yankees. And remember when George Steinbrenner would tell his players that when you put on the Yankee pinstripes, you represented tradition. Similarly, those of us in Boston talk about Celtics pride. So what is all this? This is something bigger than any one person. There's something that's going on with the institution that people feel beholden to in a very positive way. So that's it on stewardship. You know, it's interesting. I bet that this may be the only course that people talk about stewardship in a business context, and I hope that it was useful for all of you. I've got attached to the mail message I sent to you my weekly commentary, and in that weekly commentary I talk a little bit about the firm that I worked for over 20 years and how I felt the steward of that firm, and I talk about Johnson & Johnson and their credo. And please, I encourage you to read my commentary and read how the CEO in 1982 use the credo to make very important decisions during a crisis. And you can contrast that with some of the more recent crises that companies have been in particular British Petroleum or BP. Now, next week we talk about another topic that's not doesn't roll off people's tongues, and that's followership. Now, in fact, if you go and Google the term followership, you're going to find about a number that says 148,000 entries. Now, that may seem like an awful lot to you, and it is a lot, but if you put the word leadership in, you're going to get about 150 million entries. That's 1,000x, 1,000 times more discussion or topics around leadership than followership. I don't know about you, when I was a child, we used to play Follow the Leader, and it was a fun game. But somewhere in my youth, very quickly, people told me that it was better to be a leader than a follower. Last thing you want to do is be a follower. You want to be a leader. And if you're going to be a follower, you'd be a quick follower. And we reward leaders. We don't have rewards for followers. But I believe that everybody that is a leader at the same time as a follower. In fact, I think we spend more time following than we do leading. But we don't get trained about being followers. We make a choice as followers what type of followers we're going to be. When we work for the companies that we're employed with, or for the managers that we are take direction from, we make a choice on what type of a follower we're going to be, or even if we're going to follow that person. And by the way, those of you that are managers, the same thing is true with the people that report to you. So I think it's fitting that we spend some time talking about followership. Well, this is not going to be a heavy week, mainly because it's very hard to find good stuff that has been written about followership. So there are two things that I've written that I've included. A short piece on explicitly about followership and delineates, I don't know if it's 5 or 6 types of followers that you may be able to find yourself in, depending on what the situation is. We're going to talk about those types of followers during the week. And then I have another attachment that is called levels of commitment. And I have broken down commitment into, I think, 7 or 8 different levels. So I want you to use both of those as we move to the discussions and the assignments. This should not be a very strenuous week for you. I think the strenuous weeks are actually behind us. But please look at what I've provided as you do the assignments and the discussions. As usual, I have changed the work from the syllabus, and not dramatically, but it is different. So follow the learning module on Blackboard. Well, that's it for this week. Good luck in week 11. I believe that it's week 11. And I will talk to you next Friday. Thank you.